I'm Pastor Mark Griffith. I'm the new pastor here at St. Luke's. I've been here since the middle of May. And so in a lot of ways, I feel like I've had to take a crash course in this Imagine Housing project. And I'm pretty excited about it. I think there's a lot of really wonderful opportunities for us as a congregation, but for us as a community to think about some larger issues and ways that we might address them. And I'm so glad that we have this opportunity to have an update, maybe address some more concerns and answer some more questions. One of the commitments that we have at St. Luke's is to be good neighbors, and we want to invest in positive and healthy community. And so for those of you that are our neighbors, we're really glad that you're here, and your input and enthusiasm, comments, and concern are always welcome. And with that, I just wanted to say welcome and thanks for being here, and I will turn it over to our Imagine Housing staff, and they will give us their update. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Sybil Glasby, and I'm the Director of Housing Development for Imagine Housing. And we are so excited to be here tonight. For those of you that don't know, I will have been with Imagine Housing 3 years next month. And I know that's probably not a big deal, but what's really special to me is that in about 2 more months, by the end of the year, I will have been involved with St. Luke's Church for 3 years as well. So, I mean, it's wonderful. I mean, one of the first things I did when I joined Imagine Housing was I met members of the congregation, and they told me about this vision for doing more for the community. And here we are 3 years later, and we are so close. It's really exciting. We've accomplished a lot together. I just want to recap a few of those things that we've done together. Early on, we entered into a memorandum of understanding with the congregation, which was the guiding document in helping us to create a vision for what would happen here in creating affordable housing choices in Bellevue. Since that time, we've successfully completed together a comprehensive plan amendment for the city of Bellevue. And we've talked to private market rate developers and told them we did this, they're impressed. We did that all together. We also completed a rezone of the St. Luke's campus, which allowed us to take that vision and start making it into a reality as far as creating an affordable housing plan. We looked at, I don't know how many different design plans in trying to create a feasible plan that would work. We had an early plan where we were connected to the church. We had another plan where we were going over the hill. We looked at every route we could to try to find a plan that was the most respectful to the community, complementary to this green surrounding, and worked for us, the community, and St. Luke's congregation. We all wrote letters to City Council and the Planning Commission. We all attended and presented at City Council meetings and the Planning Commission meetings many times, and I know many of you attended and presented on behalf of the community and the project. For a lot of us, it was the first time ever presenting to City Council, and I applaud anybody that has done that. We received our first funding award for the 30 Bellevue Vision last January. We received a preliminary commitment of $440,000 from the Eastside cities, since they believed in this vision that we had. Just today or within a couple days, we received a check for $50,000 from the city of Bellevue, which is provided to 30 Bellevue as a loan to pay for some of the expenses associated with all this planning work that we've done over the last 3 years. Last week, we submitted a funding application that was about this thick to King County, Washington State, and the Eastside cities, requesting the final installments of funding awards that we would need to be able to move forward with construction next year. We'll find out in December if we're successful, and we're feeling very optimistic. The feedback we've had from the community has been great, and so we're really crossing our fingers that we'll start construction next Bob and Demian are going to talk about the building plan and what we're seeing right now in a little bit. But I want to show you something that's not as exciting as a building plan, but it's a good roadmap of what we're envisioning for this community. On this table, it lists our 62 apartments that we have planned. It shows a range of studios, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. What's most impressive about this listing is we're planning for 25 of our apartments to have 2 and 3 bedroom apartment, or 2 and 3 bedrooms. 25 units doesn't seem like a big deal, but that's 40% of the apartments that we're planning. Will provide homes for families with children, which is the most critical need that we're hearing from the community related to affordability. Rents for those apartments would range from $536 a month up to a maximum of a little over $1,100 a month. The current market rent in Bellevue, in West Bellevue, for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment is $2,200 a month. So our rents will range anywhere from a quarter of that amount up to less than half. What's even more exciting is with our funding award in January, we received a commitment for 8 units to have operating support. What that means is that that $536 a month rent may not be affordable to someone that's only earning $1,000 a month or $800 a month. That operating support provides that assistance to that family so that they're only spending 30% of their income on their rent. The operating support pays the difference between that and the rent that would be charged for the apartment. As a household's income goes up, the operating support goes down until the point where they're able to afford the rent that's associated with that apartment. We're hopeful that we'll receive additional operating support for more of the 2 and 3 bedrooms and for a few of the studio and 1 bedrooms. We're hoping that we'll be able to create a transition plan for households, for some of the women that are served in Sophia Way or the men congregations for the homeless. So we'll wait and see. Now I would like to have Bob come up and he's going to tell you a little bit more about the plan. When we're finished, we'll open it up for questions too. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Bob Knox. I'm the construction manager for Imagine Housing. Let's see if we can figure out how to move this slide here. There we go. First, I want to introduce Demian Menieres. He is the project architect with SMR Architects. And help me out, Demian, if I stumble here and you need to provide some backup. So where we're at right now in the process is we've more or less completed the conceptual design of the building, but we are right at that point where we need to know that our funding is in place so that we can start the schematic design process. That's really the first real step in getting the building permit application ready for submission to the City of Bellevue. So this is reflective of the conceptual design that we've got for the building. We are a single building. We're not looking at multiple buildings. We're just one building. We're at the east side of the property here for those that, I'm guessing most of you have seen a lot of the design up to this point, but just in case, I'll start at the beginning. We are situating the building in the east parking lot over here. More or less displaces the east parking lot, and then at the point where the parking lot hinges off to the northwest, the building follows that same hinge. You can see where the building's got a little bit of a hinge to it, and that's where we follow the turn of the parking lot there. It's a structured parking below grade. It's not a subterranean parking lot. We will dig that parking lot down about 3 to 4 feet, and then we will have a cast-in-place concrete structural foundation, and that first floor of parking will be structural concrete. Then the 4 floors above that, that's all residential apartment units. It's, for those that might be in the industry, it's known as type 5A construction or dubbed 4/1. We're 4 floors of wood framing over the top of a structural foundation that houses the parking garage. We are, just checking the notes here, we are 4 floors until you get to the north end of the building. After it sort of turns what we call the hinge of the building, it steps down to 2 floors. And that enables us to, that step in the building allows us not to have that such a large massing that's up against the north edge of the property that might be visible from the neighbors to the north. So it allows a little bit more of a gradual massing to the building as we step back. It also affords a bit of an opportunity to do some things on top of the 2nd floor with a rooftop deck or green space, things like that. Now, I gotta tell you that that will only happen if we can make sure that the funding comes through, but we are definitely trying to plan for that and make that happen. The exterior of the building is not, and I want to stress this, it's not going to be one big expansive siding without any kind of interruption. We've tried to depict some of the what they call articulation in the exterior skin of the building. And that's something that as we get into the schematic design and then design development after that, based on how the units lay out on the interior of the building, will help us as Dedian as he starts to design for the step outs and the different articulation of the exterior elevations, which we can use as accents, and they give some interest and relief to the exterior of the building. We're looking to use a cementitious siding material. If you guys are familiar with Hardie panel systems, we are modeling right now our budgets using Hardie panel. It's a durable product, it's affordable, but at the same time it's got some long-term durability. It's paintable, so it gives us the ability to look for a wide palette of colors that we can, try to find an attractive color scheme that's appropriate for this area as well. The roof of the building is flat. The 4th floor roof will not be seen from the ground level. It's just too high. The 2nd floor roof is one where if we can follow this plan that we've got for a green roof, I think it's going to be a very attractive feature to look up at. Or if you're on the 2nd level in St. Luke's, you're almost looking straight across the building. So it would be a nice feature if we can make that a green roof. One thing that this doesn't show, and I noticed that, there we go. We didn't show it in this modeling because we didn't want it to get in the way of the elevation of the new building, but the north wing actually sticks out here. And you would also see the north wing actually right here. We chose not to put it in just because it was going to interrupt the model of the building. But I just wanted to mention that the north wing is actually still going to define the courtyard. So the courtyard that's out here is still going to be here. The courtyard would not be for the use of Imagine Housing residents. It would be St. Luke's, exclusively for St. Luke's use. And then, again, picture the north wing sticking out. This grassy area in here, we will do some remodel to that, but that will also be St. Luke's space. That's not Imagine Housing space. So Imagine Housing's residents will use the space that we are depicting some trees in here, but actually it's a little bit more open than that in that area. That tree right there really isn't there. But that will be an area that the residents will use. And then also all along the east elevation of the building, between the building and the retaining wall, will also be Imagine Housing space for use by the residents. The other thing that I wanted to mention is the detention pond, which occurs over here, will stay in place. And we're in discussions with the city of Bellevue, and we've gone back and forth with them. There's some new water detention requirements that the city currently has that have caused us some concern as to whether we could expand the detention vault for the drainage based on the new development, or whether we were going to have to build a new detention vault that would be underneath. If we do have to build a new detention vault, we would put it under our building. So before we build the structured parking garage, we first have to build a big concrete vault that parking would actually be over the top of it. We've gotten some favorable feedback from the city recently that makes us believe that we may in fact be able to expand the detention vault that's there rather than have to build the pond, I should say, rather than have to build a detention vault. And that's really all I had. Demi, is there anything you'd like to add to this?
I guess one more thing just about where it's stepping down. Everybody knows where the narthex is. You're looking out kind of at the same level there and beyond the building is kind of the intent so when you're stepping down or you're looking out from the narthex, you're looking kind of past that where it steps down. So that was really an intent of thinking about what you're looking at where most of the folks are coming out at the sanctuary. Thanks.
Maybe the last thing I mentioned, I didn't mention it before, is that the stage that we're at now where we're in this conceptual design phase and we're waiting to get into schematic design, that is based on the status of our funding. So we're probably talking about 2 months, anywhere between 2 and 3 months before we would be able to know that the funding's in place that allows us to move ahead with the schematic design. At that point, though, it's full steam ahead just as quickly as we can put our permits set together and get submitted to the city level. Thank you.
As Sybil mentioned, we were awarded local public funds in January, which is a really, really important step for us. And then the rezone was successfully completed, which clearly is the second most important step for us. And again, Sybil mentioned a few days ago, we submitted the major funding application, which included many, many things, including the executed purchase option to the land for the housing. And once again, as Sybil mentioned and Bob mentioned, we are hopefully waiting for that award in December for the public funds, which leads us to January 2017. We have another very large application to put together that is also very, very important. And between January and March, again, we will further the design concepts and continue community engagement and outreach. We would love to submit for permits in March, and that leads us through to July of 2017 when we hope to receive the permit issuance. During that time, we select an investor-lender team and secure those commitments. Financing wraps up in July, and we would like to start construction August 2017. Construction takes about 13 months, so that would lead us to August 30th, 2018, and we begin lease up 3 months before construction completion. So that would be about May 2018. We start lease up and the waiting list opens. When we complete construction, we have a party, and people begin to move in September 2018 with the goal of 100% occupancy in January of 2019, which of course is the most important goal here. So that concludes our presentation. We would like to wrap up with a Q&A session.
Is it possible that you could provide a Google exact positioning of the property that you're doing in the diagonal form, so that we as a congregation can say, this is where it's going to go, this is the property that they're going to be using?
We actually do, as part of the conceptual design, we do have site plans. And we have the floor plans for the buildings that are in, again, they're in a conceptual driveways, but they are exactly located on the site. We thought, and maybe we should have included them in the presentation, we thought possibly the bird's eye view might have allowed people to better understand the relationship to the building itself. But we do have those plans, and we certainly can make those available.
Just forward and Carolyn.
Absolutely. Carolyn will have the most updated set to your home.
I live in the bridge.
Sure.
And I'm trying to, figure out how the building is there, how much space is there. Or what, are you going to have, something between the bridge and the building here? Or is it right up next to it?
No, it's quite it's a distance away. Danny, do you want to maybe feel that in terms of dimensionally, the
I mean,
distance?
is it gonna be grass back there or parking or what?
The building itself is set back about 12 to 14 feet from the large wall. And so there's a buffer between that. We're kind of, what we're gonna start to think through is what is the landscape gonna look like?
So are you saying
between the
there's gonna be
building
a wall
No,
between the bridge and here?
Say that again?
Are you gonna have a wall between the bridge and here? A wall?
I mean,
No.
she's in the apartments to the north.
Right.
So I
right.
think, if I'm understanding the question right, I think you're wondering what is the landscaping and what is going to occur in that space. But also, I think she wants to know how far from the north property line are we to the start of our building? And it's certainly more than 50 feet.
Oh, yeah,
So it's
so-
quite a distance back.
So what I was talking about was the retaining wall that exists there. On the east end, it's about 12 to 14 feet in from that wall. From the north, it's actually a lot farther from that north property line. I don't quote me on this, but I think it's probably around 30 something feet from the north property line. So it's pretty stepped back. I mean, really, what Bob was explaining is we're really kind of in the parking area, but we're set back from that east edge as it takes its turn.
Is it short mark north toward the bridge?
Correct.
And what is in the back there, grass or garages or what?
On that east edge,
On the north end?
that is,
There are landscape trees that currently
Yeah.
grow along the park.
Yeah.
Damien, there's a fence back there too, is the property.
Exactly.
So if you see the fence, that's kind of your guideline as far as the property line.
Right. And let's just say this, there's not a lot of treescape that we're changing or removing in that edge. And what we probably will be looking at is actually making more, adding more landscape, kind of as a buffer and a screen above that retaining
But it
wall.
won't be like a play area of grass.
It's a lower court, which is
Wonderful.
where the shed is down below, if you know where that is.
So you're talking, this is the north property line, and it
Yeah.
runs kind of like this
Oh, I see.
on the page. So you're down in here.
Yeah,
These trees, they're not fir trees,
I see.
but there are trees there nonetheless. They're deciduous trees, I think.
and that's just grass there.
Well, it's actually parking. This is parking in here
Oh,
right
there's
now.
parking there, yeah.
And that shed that Damien's talking about sits right about in here. And Damien, I think that's all of 35 feet, it's more.
It's
I
probably
think it's
more,
more like
that's why
50
I'm not exactly
in here.
sure.
And-
It's partially that.
So I think we're indicating, at least conceptually in the site plan, these trees will remain.
I see.
And we are creating a bit of a hammerhead in the parking because we have a fire department requirement to allow the fire trucks to be able to pull in and then they can pull into the building, use this hammerhead to turn around and then exit out of the property. So that we don't have to have them making a loop through the property, which is gonna be a real problem for the building. So we will have a little bit of asphalt there, it'll be like an area for dumpsters. But, you know, we haven't done a sightline study, but our feeling was that we had lowered the building enough in here that I think it's quite possible that you're not gonna look up and see the building. You know, a great question. Right now, there's 142 stalls on the site right now. We are planning to develop, can everybody hear me? We are planning the development for 116 stalls total. And that is based on a shared use and a parking study that we've actually had David Evans do 2 parking studies for us on this site. And they've used Andrews Glen and St. Margaret's Episcopal Church, which is a very similar arrangement there that we are proposing here at St. Louis. And then they also studied and did parking counts and developed parking rates, utilization rates for Francis Village. They did that at St. Margaret's and Andrews Glen as well. And so they came up with a parking demand of 78 parking stalls for the residential, and came up with a max Sunday parking of 38 parking stalls utilized by St. Luke's on Sundays at the peak Sunday times. And that's how we came up with, the study came up with 116. It's the 78 for the residential and 38 on the church uses side. But this is also, there'll be a shared parking element to this. So it doesn't mean that the church is limited to 38 parking stalls. It's how we are able to support 116 parking stalls for the shared use for the entire development.
Then there are underground parking separate of the 116, is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
So 116 is not
Includes-
surface.
It's,
I thought I heard the word surface stall.
it includes the 38 that's under the building.
It doesn't, thank you.
Yes.
How many people, this one woman said on email, she said, oh, they're going to have, it says one family, but they're going to have 5 or 6 or 7 relatives living there too. And is there any guidelines for that, or does it make any difference?
There are guidelines for the number of occupants in an apartment, and I'm not sure if that's based on fair housing areas or how that's determined. The number of occupants for any apartment is 2 per bedroom and 1 in the living space. So the maximum number of occupants in a 1-bedroom apartment would be 3 people. The maximum number of occupants in a 2-bedroom apartment would be 5 people. So that's the number that we use and we follow. Typically, we don't see households that large. I mean, there may be some very large families, and we hope that we have a few families that have 3, 4, 5 kids. I mean, that would be a wonderful thing to have happen. You don't see it a lot because there's no housing typically available for large families. But just our demographics don't support that. And we do require all adult members to be listed on our leases, children as well, so we know, who is occupying our apartments.
Have you all studied or started work on ingress egress yet in relation to Bellevue Way and the neighborhood street across the way, 30th? Have you started that yet?
Certainly, I mean, that's part of the site plan and the access to the site. And I think our earliest meeting was with the fire department in determining whether we had adequate access. And part of the traffic studies and parking studies we looked at have also talked about traffic on Bellevue Way. Now, Bob knows this facts better than I do, so.
Yeah, the traffic study, so I was referring to the parking study that we've done earlier,
Correct.
which we actually got ahead of our requirements for you to do a parking study. We wanted to make sure this development had the analysis for the parking to support the design. The traffic study is something that gets triggered when we start to go through the entitlement process. So the entitlement process is when we start the schematic design and we've actually made a architectural design review application with the city of Bellevue. We're actually starting that formal process to get in for a building permit. That will trigger a traffic study, and that's where we will look more specifically at the egress ingress egress issues. I can tell you that in concept, what we've talked about is that there'd be a flow to the parking in the building. Make sure I got this right. We're entering to the south, and we're coming through under the building, and then they exit out, drivers exit out and go out here on this. Did I say south? I meant, south, and then they enter out on the north.
Right, enter on the south, exit on the north.
That's the concept right now, yeah. Yes, sir.
Is there any possibility that we could possibly be getting the light out there?
We did get some feedback from the city when we were taking this whole process through the CPA and then into the concurrent rezone. And we did get some traffic impact numbers from just very preliminary numbers from the city of Bellevue. And they, based on peak traffic demand, what they thought would be in and outs based on the number of units that we were proposing, that given the number of trips that run down Bellevue Way, it's almost insignificant. They're reluctant to use that term insignificant, but it essentially that was their, verbally that's what they told me. You know, it's a very low amount. Gets added to the overall traffic that's already using Bellevue Way as an arterial to get from there to there. Well, I think as we advance this with the city of Bellevue, those type of discussions are going to take place.
Item related to traffic, cars, parking, et cetera, but I know we talked about very early on is the utilization of parking in our communities. Cars are expensive, they're expensive to operate, they're expensive to maintain, and they're expensive, just expensive. At Velocity, our community at South Brooklyn Park and Ride, we have 58 apartments. We created 44 parking spaces for that building. At the last time I've checked, only 35 of those spaces were even being used by residents. So just because we have parking available and we are providing it, which is part of the reason why we're encouraging shared use, because it can be adjusted based on our demand or St. Luke's demand. We don't typically have one car for every apartment, or sometimes we only have maybe one car for every 3 apartments. And we have great transit service that's on Bellevue Way, which is only going to be improving over the next years.
The parking study, which studied St. Margaret's Angers Glen, which is about as good a correlating project as you're going to find anywhere, not just City of Bellevue, but anywhere, to what we're proposing here. The Andrews Glen parking utilization rate is 1/3 of the parking utilization rate that we're basing, the 1.25 that right now the land use code in the City of Bellevue says that we need. That's how we get to the 78 parking stalls for the residential side here. At 1.25, it's 3 times the parking utilization that we're actually experiencing on Andrews Glen, which is 100% low income affordable. Yes.
Is there now, or will there be fencing around the retention pond?
I heard the retention
Is
pond.
there fencing around the retention pond?
Yes.
Oh, there is.
Yes, there is.
Yes, and it's locked.
There's currently fencing around it now.
There will be.
And there will be when we're done. If we modify it, the preliminary design is to dig it deeper, but there may be digging it deeper and possibly extending it to the east slightly. But whatever we do to that, we will make sure that it's fenced and secure as part of the design.
One benefit is if we don't have to change the detention pond, yeah, we're not going to be sending Bob down there. We are.
I don't know, we might.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can just see, you know, the insurance that we have to carry on our communities and property. I mean, no. So yes, we would, you know, share in that cost of maintenance. If we have to make any improvements to it because of our community, then of course that would be a cost that we would bear. But ongoing maintenance, that would be something that we'll start talking about when we go through our shared use and condominium documents. But we won't send Bob in.
The number of parking spaces that you referenced include out front and or on the side Or are you just talking about the surface area down below?
The 116 is the entire site. It includes up front, over here on the side, at the north. It's up. We do go from 142 to 116 in this development design.
Do you, and you may not be able to speak to this, maybe someone at St. Luke's needs to speak to this. Do you think you'll give up your capacity as a park and ride and or a spot for schools to do drops on buses? Because at least 3 schools or 4 from the city use you.
That's basically something that St. Luke's would have to talk about. The Park and Ride just has the ones facing Bellevue Way. I don't know about the bus turnaround because of the fact that we've got a garage going on down here now. So those will all have to be looked at.
Are you gonna have an on-site manager here, or who's in control of that?
Oh, we will. We'll have on-site staff. We'll have management, maintenance. We'll have services, supportive services staff, which provides case management for any of our residents that may need case management, coordination with other services such as childcare or employment or different types of services that we can bring to our residents. We're also talking about some collaborative services with the YMCA for some of the children and youth programming that we'll be doing. Yes, no, we have professional on-site management in all of our communities.
24/7?
We do not do 24/7. We find it's sort of an interesting thing, but when you provide 24/7 on-site, live on-site management, the caliber of professionalism that you have from your on-site management for communities that are bigger than a few units is not achievable as it is by having professional management that is their business hours, and then we also have after-hours emergency numbers that are available when we provide that service. But we do not have our staff live on-site as part of their job description.
Is the lottery system strictly pull it out of the hat?
Oh, as far as the wait list?
Uh-huh.
What we typically will do is we will open the wait list about 90 days in advance of the community opening. And residents that are interested in, or future residents are interested in an apartment, they will put their name on that list, and they will identify what their income level is, what their household size is. And we will keep that list, and then when the wait list closes, typically it will be randomized. So even though you put your name on the list first, you may not be the first person that fills out an application for that apartment. And the reason why we do that is a sense of fairness. Not everybody could be here the first morning when the wait list opens, and we don't want that kind of a system to happen. So we allow time so that we can reach out, we can market the apartments, reach out in the community, and it's not just because you were able to be here at 8 a.m. that you get the apartment.
How do you choose though, when it's so popular and needed?
Well, as you saw, I mean, we have a lot of different income limits. So most likely the apartments that are restricted to households earning 30% of median income, they will probably have the most demand because that is where we see the greatest need. However, we have apartments that are restricted to households earning 40%, or which is roughly $29,000 to $39,000, depending on your household size. And then we have apartments that are restricted to households earning 60%, which is for $49,000 to $69,000. So,
But at 2,600 plus are already, what does it say, qualified low-income households currently on the wait list? 2,600?
that's our total wait list for all of our site communities. And some of those are seniors, some of those are veterans, some are, it's different populations, but that's our wait list. There's a cap on how high your income goes. It's a formula. But it's quite a bit higher than what your restricted income was when you moved in. So, and sometimes by having units in because it really helps to have conservation when you're having to pay for your own washing machine. So we will have the common laundry rooms, and we try to connect them with our community space. A lot of times that's a great social opportunity. You're doing laundry and then your kids are playing in the community room, or you're socializing with your neighbors. So we try to make those spaces inviting. Our rents are based on growth in income. So 30% of median income for an individual is $19,000. Each year, that income level determines what the maximum rent would be for an apartment that's affordable at 30% of median income. When we do our budgets, we forecast that our rents will increase 2.5% a year. And that's assuming income is going to increase 2.5% per year. And that hasn't really happened. You know, what we've seen is rents have gone up 20%, but income has only gone up maybe 1.5%. So our rents haven't gone up.
Is there plans for an outside play area for the kids that's separate from the one that there is down there now, or is there thought that that might be a common play area? We haven't actually developed what the play area is going to look like, but it would be up in this area, and then all along the east side of the building. We have a space there that it varies in width a bit, but I think at its widest, it's about 20 feet wide, between the building and the chain link fence and the retaining wall that starts the critical areas and the steep slopes that go down.
We allow all service animals, and at this point, we don't allow pets per se, but if there's an accommodation that's required because somebody has a pet, we would of course, honor. 30 Bellevue started as just a temporary placeholder name when we first started talking about the community. We just needed something to identify the housing from St. Luke's Church because it was getting confusing when we had conversations in January or February of this year. We reached out to the congregation and got some really wonderful naming suggestions. And we also reached out to our staff, our board, for naming suggestions. And 30 Bellevue kept coming up as, well, why didn't you just keep calling it 30 Bellevue? And so we selected 30 Bellevue as the permanent name of the community, but we have not filed for the legal ownership name. I mean, there's a lot of steps that will happen, and once we start marketing